The Full Circle Podcast. Compelling interviews and incredible tales from Colorado's western slope, from the mountains to the desert. Christi, Reece, and her team hear from the movers, shakers, and characters of the Grand Valley and surrounding mountain towns that make the western slope the place we all love. You'll learn, you'll laugh, you'll love with The Full Circle. Hi, everyone. This is Christi, Reece. Welcome back to the Full Circle Podcast. I am excited and honored today to welcome our guest, Rob Bleiberg, the Executive Director of the Colorado West Land Trust. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you for having me, Christi. It's great to be with you.
Really excited to have you here. There's a lot to talk about in land conservation, and let's start with a little bit about you. How did you get involved in land conservation and with the land trust in particular?
Well, I got involved in land conservation just during college, and I recognized that that's where my passions were. That's where they lie, and I wanted to figure out an opportunity to impact communities and to advocate for conservation in a way that was collaborative and that built community. And so the land trust world was very appealing to me for that reason. And I started with what was then the Mesa County Land Conservancy in 1996. So I've been with the land trust here in the Grand Valley since the mid-90s.
And I was reading your bio, and it said that you have an MS in Natural Resource Policy and a BA in American Studies. So you really were thinking about land conservation when you were getting your education.
No question. And trying to figure out, that's a pretty big arena, and which aspects of it were most appealing to me, and where did I want to spend my time and my efforts. And the land trust has been a great fit.
Yeah. And how did you get to Grand Junction?
I came here to work for the land trust. I had been in Colorado for about 7 years, and had lived on the West Slope and over on the Front Range, and had just finished up a master's degree and was looking for a job. And a group of Palisade farmers were in the process of hiring their first staff person, and thought I'd be here for a few years, and all of a sudden it's 25 years later.
Yeah. So Harry Talbot was very instrumental in getting the land conservation program started here. Is that who you're referring to?
Yeah, Harry was part of it. He was my first boss. He was the president of the board when I got hired. And so Harry and John Butler and Doris Butler and Ivan and Jane Wood and some other Palisade area growers started the land trust in 1980 as they saw the boom of the oil shale going on across western Colorado, and they recognized that if they wanted to see orchards around Palisade be part of our community's future, they needed to take action. It wasn't going to happen without them stepping up and figuring out some solutions.
And how did the timing of their beginning of that group compare to the rest of Colorado? Were they ahead of other communities in kind of establishing those visions for the future?
Yeah, Harry and John and Ivan and the other folks, Blaine, Derek, and others, they were really visionary, and which is interesting because you don't always think of farmers who are in middle age as being progressive and forward-looking and visionary, but they certainly were. And so we were probably one of the first 4 or so land trusts formed in the state, first 4 or 5.
That's awesome. And they were thinking probably mostly about the oil and gas exploration, but they couldn't have imagined the real estate boom that we're having now and how that has changed our landscape.
Yeah, they had been around long enough to see these natural resource boom and bust cycles with uranium and other things over the years. And so they really felt that the land around us, the agriculture and the wildlife, that those were really enduring values that needed to be protected for the long-term future of the West Slope and of this community in particular.
So what are some of the particulars of our land trust mission here in Mesa County? And obviously you have merged with another land trust group, so you serve a wider range today, but let's focus for a minute on just the Grand Valley and Mesa County. What are some of the particulars of your mission here?
Well, our mission is multifaceted. It all centers and revolves around conservation. And so we are looking at conservation as, in its own right, for how do we protect the most important wildlife habitat, scenic lands, how do we maintain a land base for agriculture so that's part of our economy, so it's part of our quality of life. And then over the years, we've recognized that they have many different ways to serve this community. And so we got involved in about 2010 with work around Monument Road that involves public recreation. And that's been an important...
Thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah, no, we all benefit from that in many, many ways. And then we also have focused in the last few years specifically on how can we connect our community to nature? How can we provide opportunities for access to nature? And so Monument Road's a great example of that. And we're delighted by the Monument Road Trail, the concrete path now connecting the Riverside neighborhood to the Lunch Loop network, trail network.
And more connection to come.
Yeah, that's one of our exciting projects coming up right now is we are working closely with the city on what we're calling Phase 2 of the Monument Trail, and that will extend from the Lunch Loop parking lot up to South Camp Road. And we're excited about that for a number of reasons, one of which is all of a sudden with that completion of that trail segment, we'll have a 10-mile loop off-trail paved that is accessible for our community that goes up Monument Road, down South Camp, Redlands Parkway down to the Riverfront Trail. So we're really adding value to these other trails that have been built over the years in this community as well.
Absolutely. So you mentioned the recreation piece of it. Is that included in a lot of land conservation missions, or is that kind of a surprise to you, the way that happened?
I think a lot of land trusts around the country have recognized that this is an important way to serve communities. So I saw a statistic about 75% of land trusts in the country have some land holdings that involve public access. It might be a nature park, it might be trails like we have here, but we're looking more and more at the question of how do we serve communities, how do we engage communities, how do we connect kids to nature, especially in these days when the average American youth is spending something like 7 minutes a day in unstructured outdoor time.
So you are tasked with identifying properties that would be would fit into the puzzle of conservation, whether that be for access or views or agriculture, but also people come to you to say, is my property a viable piece of land for conservation?
Yeah, we have a mix of what I would call proactive, strategic outreach and work, and then we also are opportunistic and reactive when a landowner approaches us with a project that fits our criteria and advances our mission.
Mm-hmm. And talk about the reach over Western Colorado now that you have joined with the other land trust group.
Yeah, so we formally merged last year. It's in 2019, October of 2019, with the Black Canyon Regional Land Trust, which was based in Montrose. And that group, in turn, was a combination of a land trust in Paonia and a land trust in Montrose. And so we merged, and we now serve 6 Colorado counties, and we work in Grand County, Utah as well. So from just over the state line to Blue Mesa Reservoir, and then from the crest of the San Juans to the Book Cliffs as well. So I'm a little partial, but I think it's the best part of Colorado.
Oh, I'm a little partial as well.
we even get to Lake City, Christi.
Yeah,
so I know that area is near and dear to
you.
So we're doing some work on the Lake Fork of the Gunnison watershed.
Oh, I love hearing that. That's great. What are some of your favorite projects that the Land Trust has accomplished?
You're asking me to pick a favorite child here.
Sorry, not your favorite. Notable, maybe some that have been particularly challenging, maybe.
Sure. Well, a couple. We'll start right here in Mesa County, and we'll start with the land that the Land Trust was really formed to protect, and that's the orchard land around Palisade. And what we have there is this. It's an incredibly small and incredibly important area for our community. There are probably 3,000, a little bit over 3,000 acres of fruit in production in Mesa County. So it's only 5 square miles of land. It's a tiny area. It's in 20-acre orchards, and so it's very fragmented. Mm-hmm. And so it's a challenging conservation objective, but it's also critically important. And so over the years, through our persistent work and the wonderful vision of so many fruit growers, we've been able to protect over 40 family farms in the Palisade area. And our goal is to protect a critical mass of orchard land so that into the future there's land available for a commercial fruit industry. And when I say fruit, I mean wine as well. And we are very proud of that work, and it's ongoing. And we think that the fact that I think people take that landscape almost for granted now. They love it. They think it's wonderful, and they just, of course it's there. Well, that's only there because of the hard work of producers and other folks who want to make sure that's part of our community's future.
Mm-hmm. And thank you to the landowners that participate and think it's important. I mean,
no question. And all of our work that we do is voluntary, it's incentive-based, and so landowners who choose to work with us, it's their discretion. And so we are very grateful. I'm humbled time and again by landowners who recognize that they're making some economic sacrifices in order to protect their farm or ranch or wildlife habitat for the future.
It's giving me goosebumps just talking about it. And I think anybody that drives the Fruit and Wine Byway or any of those scenic roads knows how important it is to preserve that feel. I mean, it's a big part of our community.
It is, and it has an outsized economic impact on us. The wine industry, maybe 1,000 acres of grapes in the entire state, and it's producing over $150 million of economic activity for the state. And a lot of that is agritourism. So it's people coming into our community, discovering how wonderful it is, spending money, and some of them will relocate there and others will go home and come back later. So it's a great impact for our community.
Awesome. Any other projects that stand out as being particularly difficult or rewarding when accomplished?
Well, the work along Monument Road has been wonderful for us, and that represented a big change for us in 2010 to look at moving from working lands and land that did not involve trails and public access to a project that like the Monument Road, that it's all about public access and recreation. And what's been for me really rewarding there is it's been now we've been in this for over 10 years now. And to build that trail that we all enjoy required us to acquire, I think it was 11 different property interests, and to work with the city and GOCO, Great Outdoors Colorado, and others to raise about $5 million. So the work, it's long-term work, and it takes a long time to get this completed, and the benefits reverberate for years, for generations.
And I want to come back to funding in a minute, but talk about your relationships with other entities in town, because obviously you have to work closely with county, city governments to get some of these projects accomplished, especially like the monument project. But talking about how these lands can benefit the community as a whole, there are other stakeholders, right?
No question. And our ability to get things done depends on us successfully building relationships with landowners, with local government, with other interest groups, our stakeholders, our nonprofits. And we've recognized early on that if we can get so much more done by working in partnership with others. And that's really been a principal strategy for us, is how do we develop the relationships to extend our reach. And there's some great examples up along Monument Road. The restoration work that has been going on since the trail was built has been carried out by volunteers. It's been done in partnership with the Eureka Math and Science Center. We've had a wonderful ongoing partnership with the Riverside Educational Center, and I was delighted to see their support from you. Thank you, Christi, and the Giving Circle. It's just wonderful. The Riverside Educational work, the partnership with the Riverside Educational Center has been really cool for a number of reasons, but most importantly, we're providing opportunities for kids to get outside, play, learn, and just
learn about those connections in our community.
And just to get involved in healthy outdoor activities, which is awesome. And we're also excited because we started partnering with REC and secured some funding in partnership to provide outdoor programming. And the Riverside Educational Center has really embraced that and found additional resources after we've left the table. So it's wonderful to plant that seed and to see it flourish and to see the ongoing benefits to the kids in the community.
There's some great things happening here. And I want to commend you and Libby and the rest of your staff. When we started talking about your history with the Land Trust, you said you wanted to get involved in something that really brought a community together. And I have to say, Rob, that you do that so well. I mean, I'm just always impressed by your depth of knowledge, your professionalism, and your ability to bring people together and have a vision for things. It's really amazing.
That's very kind of you to say that, Christi. And a lot of the lion's share of the credit goes to the staff members, Libby, Ilana Moyer, David Varner, to name a few. And then we've got a wonderful, engaged board of directors that helps us build bridges and work in partnership across the community.
Great. So let's talk about funding a little bit. How do you secure your funding when you need to buy a piece of property, or that's your goal? And when someone comes in and wants to conserve a piece of land, what's that process look like for them, and what are the financial benefits? And you could talk a little bit about the House bill that was passed in 2021.
Great. There's a lot there, so I'll see if I can if I get to all of it, or at least most of it. The capital funding, when we go out and look at a property along Monument Road, or now we're looking at a $1.6 million trail extension project with the city. And for those capital projects, it's typically a mix of public funding. So in this case, we're looking at a very significant financial investment from the city. We'll go to Great Outdoors Colorado, which is lottery money in the state, which is constitutionally directed towards parks and recreation and open space. And then we will also look at private funders as well. And for the big capital purchases, it's often public money that leads the way. So those grants from the state, there are some farm bill programs for farmland conservation and other grants there. And then
so you guys are applying for grants all the time.
Yeah, and it varies for capital versus our operating budget. So with the operating budget, we have about $1 million operating budget, and that's a mix of contributions from about 600 donors in the community, foundation grants. We do have some resources set aside that spin off money for our stewarding the easement portfolio, and I'll explain that jargon a little later that we have now.
Okay.
Yeah, and then for a lot of the conservation easements, we have seen the state and the legislature continue to approve laws or pass bills that increase incentives for private landowners to conserve land. It's part of the Colorado DNA that we care about the landscape and the place, and conservation is hugely important. And so what we see is with this latest bill that's been passed is that landowners who donate a conservation agreement whereby they're agreeing to not develop their land, they are eligible for a very generous state tax credit. And I will spare everybody the details right now.
But a much higher percentage than was granted before.
Yes, it makes
of the property value.
Correct, and there's a complicated appraisal process where they look at the appraiser looks at what's the land worth on the open market, what's it worth with those restrictions in place, and then the difference between those two is the value of the conservation agreement, and then there's a tax credit that is based on that.
Okay.
For folks listening who want to learn more, I'll stop there, but please contact our office and we can give you plenty of information. If you have insomnia, this might be a solution for you.
As with any House bill, right? There's a lot of reading.
Yeah. But the long and short is that the state recognizes that for this wonderful place to be conserved and passed on to future generations, we need to provide incentives to private landowners. The ranchers and farmers whose land we pass, they provide a lot of public goods and public benefits. And it's not just the food or fiber, it's the wildlife habitat, it's the views, it's the sense of place. And so we want to encourage those landowners to conserve their land and to give them options so that they can make good decisions for their families.
Wonderful. So obviously you rely on some donations from the communities. If somebody wants to get involved, wants to donate, they can go to the website. But you have fundraisers throughout the year as well. And when you have a project coming up, you often, are out asking for donations.
We certainly do. And it's Co-West Land Trust, all one word, .org. And you can learn more about the organization. You can learn about ways to get involved and ways to financially support the organization as well. And we rely on that. The donors make all of our work possible.
Could you talk a little bit about the, I gotta look at my notes because I don't want to misspeak, but the selenium in the water and how that has affected some of the projects, the salinity?
So there's been an ongoing effort for many, many years to reduce salt loading and selenium in the Gunnison and Colorado River, in the Colorado River Basin. And it turns out that around across western Colorado, we have these the geology features these shale layers that underlay a lot of farm ground, and if water is not applied well for irrigation, the water will percolate down, dissolve salts, and migrate back to the river. And so there's a program in place, the salinity control program, where ditch companies are lining canals and putting canals in pipes. And we've seen some of this in the Grand Valley. And the reason for that is to reduce salt loading. It also provides some other benefits in terms of water conservation. Unfortunately, that work also may dry up wetlands that have been created along the ditches and canals and the cottonwoods that you see along canals over the decades. And so there's some mitigation work that needs to happen with each of these ditch lining projects. And so we are looking at, can we partner with some of the ditch companies and help them protect wetlands and recreate or reestablish, rehabilitate wetlands in order to mitigate the impact of the salinity control.
Mm-hmm. Because the salinity does affect the fish.
It affects the fish
and a lot of things.
Water quality downstream. And so there's a lot, this is one area where our downstream friends are excited to put money into this project because they have higher water quality and it's cheaper for them to filter their water and so forth if we are able to reduce the salt loading.
From a macro perspective and then coming down into our community, what are some of the biggest issues you see coming in 22 that will affect land conservation?
Well, I think water is certainly the biggest issue facing Western Colorado. Mm-hmm. And so we are looking very carefully now about how we benefit our communities, how we work around this issue of water scarcity. And the fact is that with each of these conservation agreements that we've acquired over the 40 years we've been in existence, and we've now protected about 500 different properties, about 125,000 acres across the 6 counties in Colorado and Grand County, Utah. And a lot of those properties involve irrigated agriculture, and each of those conservation agreements has language restricting how that water can be used. And so we are doing an inventory of our impact over the decades, and we also are looking at projections for how water supplies may change over time, and that will be a very important factor as we look at new projects and where we invest our money in farmland conservation. Mm-hmm. And also related to water, we've had horrible drought, obviously, for quite some time. And so we're also looking at, are there things that we can do to help our communities be more resilient in the face of drought, in the face of wildfire? And so we have a major effort right now looking at which properties that we've protected are most important from a wildfire perspective, and how can we partner with landowners with whom we've already completed these conservation agreements? How can we work with them to improve habitat, to improve forest health, so these areas are less prone to experience catastrophic wildfire? And we're doing a demonstration project right now, actually, as we speak, down in Ouray County on Log Hill Mesa. Folks know where that is, just south of Ridgeway, just west of the reservoir and the state park there. And we have we're working with a landowner who's donated a conservation agreement, and his property is right on the escarpment, just upwind of hundreds of houses. And his property is prone to lightning strikes given its location. So we're working with him and a group called the West Region Wildfire Council, which focuses on fire readiness, to do some habitat work on that property that will make that property more resilient, less likely to go up in flames if there's a lightning strike, or if there is a fire, more likely to be a ground fire that does not cause catastrophic issues.
Well, that's a really timely subject, considering the wildfires up in Boulder County that were just devastating. And I think we just recorded a piece for airing next week talking about being prepared for a wildfire. I mean, some of those people didn't have time to go home at all and get anything. It was so fast moving. So we really need to be prepared here.
No doubt. And then we also had the example, of course, this past summer of all of the mudslides in Glenwood Canyon. And so trying to figure out, have we conserved properties that would really adversely impact our communities if they burn? So are they properties that are important for domestic water supply, for example? And are they properties that might include important stream reaches that harbor native Colorado cutthroat trout. That we can't see those areas. We don't want to see those areas burn and that water quality decrease and those trout populations threatened. So we're looking at the work that we've done, and we recognize that with these hundreds of landowners that we have a relationship with and that we've partnered with, we can do some wonderful restoration work and habitat work. We're doing another project up on Glade Park right now that is a watershed-wide restoration and restoration project. And so we're working with private landowners, and public agencies are involved. The BLM's involved, and the state Parks and Wildlife is involved, and looking at how can we improve habitat in some areas that had been irrigated historically that don't have sufficient water now. We're looking at, can we work with those ranchers to put in a more drought-tolerant grass mix that will benefit wildlife and livestock as well.
So in a project like that, is that something that the Land Trust had as a focus, or how did that project come to be on your radar?
That's a great question. In that situation, we've done some restoration work in various places in our service area. We wanted to scale that up, and we had a wonderful situation, an opportunity with a ranch owner there who was doing a lot of restoration work and wanted to increase its impact and increase the geographic reach of that work. And the Little Dolores watershed is a great place to do that, because we've done many projects over the decades with ranchers up in that neighborhood. And so we have we're starting with this one ranch, and we're working our way up the watershed, up the stream to work with other partners. And the goal is to really impact the entire watershed and make that specific drainage more resilient to low water flows, and just a healthier place for wildlife over time, and of course the residents of that community. And there's a wildfire mitigation component to that project as well.
Wow. It must, I think about all the patchwork of all the different properties. It must get you so excited, and sometimes I think I would be a little bit overwhelmed thinking, oh, over here and then over there and over there. I mean, that's a lot of different types of projects, lots of different types of lands, lots of different locations. How do you keep track of everything?
No question. And you had mentioned Harry Talbot earlier. Harry, for those who didn't have the chance to meet him, loved a good one-liner, and he always said that we are surrounded by insurmountable opportunity, and so we're working to surmount that. And we look at how can we partner with others and leverage our resources. So the wildfire work, we're partnering with a nonprofit called the West Region Wildfire Council. The work on Glade Park I described, we're partnering with River's Edge West, we're partnering with the Western Colorado Conservation Corps, public agencies, private landowners. So collaboration is really critical if we hope to extend our reach and have the impact that we want to have.
Yeah. Let's talk about wildlife for a minute, because I think that we all know that wildlife corridors have become threatened in many areas of Western Colorado. And what are we doing in Mesa County and the wider region to help with animal migration and things like that?
That's a great question. And I think people don't always recognize how important the private lands are to the health of our wildlife populations. They think, oh, we have 75% public land in Mesa County. Why don't we?
We don't need any more.
We don't need anymore. And the reality is that, for example, DRL often they'll move from BLM land in the desert through, and make their way to the top of the Grand Mesa or the top of Pinyon Mesa on Glade Park. And between that BLM land and the National Forest land is an awful lot of private land. And so we've had wonderful success stories on Glade Park, for example, and in Plateau Valley, connecting protecting entire watersheds, so that, for example, in Plateau Valley, wildlife that might spend part of the winter on state-owned wildlife habitat down near Plateau Creek have entire drainages that are under conservation easement that are available for them to migrate all the way up to the Forest Service land for their summer range. And so we continue to build on that work, and we've done extensive mapping of the wildlife corridors and identified the most important properties. And again, this mix of proactive outreach and opportunism when landowners approach us.
And is it mainly focused around deer and elk, or do you have, I mean, there's a lot of bear in the area. There's some cats that come down, I know, from the monument. And what about fowl? And I love seeing the, oh my gosh, drawing a blank. Not the herons, not the geese.
The cranes.
The cranes. I love seeing the cranes in Delta.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
So we will focus on different wildlife species in different areas. And so I've mentioned Glade Park a number of times. I'll mention it again. There's a population of Gunnison sage grouse, which is an endangered bird. And we've protected, I want to say, about 75% of the private land that harbors those birds
where
at this
nest
time, where they spend their life. Yeah. And so that's obviously critical for that species. We are very, and so it really varies around the region. There are areas where we're very focused on fish habitat and important stream reaches where we want to protect the private land above those streams to help ensure water quality, for example.
And again, probably a mix of you all targeting something that's important and also with landowners coming to you saying, hey, this is going on in my land.
That's right. We're working on a project right now with over near Crawford, and it's a landowner who owns a couple hundred acres that is strategically located between public land and a large conserved private ranch. And this is a powerful story for me. It's a couple, and the gentleman recently passed from cancer, and one of his wishes, one of his legacies will be preservation of this bird habitat. He's an active wildlife photographer, beautiful images, and he was committed to protecting his property because he understood how it laid on the landscape and connected these other areas. And we hope to close that project in the spring. And so that was an example where the landowners approached us, and we recognized it was a great fit for our organization, and we're delighted to work with them.
When you got a piece of property in a very rugged area that's probably not suited for agriculture, probably not suited for development, and is not suited for mining either, what are your goals and what are the advantages to still conserving that property? If, a lot of people I'm sure think, well, why do we need to give this person a tax credit? They can't develop that land anyway.
Mm-hmm. Well, the tax incentives are going to be based on values that they give up. So if it's a property with no access that doesn't have good market value, there's not going to be much of a tax benefit there. But for other properties, this is a way to protect habitat. It's a way to protect scenery. We are very interested in the lands along our scenic byways in western Colorado. So Unaweep Canyon leaps to mind, the Grand Mesa Scenic Byway. We've done a lot of work along the West Elk Scenic Byway. And so we'll look at the property and determine are there public benefits. And so we say no. If we've worked with a number of landowners that have properties that are within the city limits that are in the sewer district. And these landowners have approached us, and we've looked at the property, and we've said, this is great, but it doesn't provide public access. It doesn't provide important habitat. It doesn't provide a view shed, of the monument from a public road. And so we'll say, we'll politely decline that offer.
It's got to be hard, though, for someone that wants to conserve land.
It is.
Yeah.
And we support the desire, and we also recognize that the tools that we use have a huge impact, and that can be really positive, and it also is something that we really need to be thoughtful about. So obviously housing is a crisis in western Colorado right now and many other places. And so we are really careful here in Mesa County, for example. We do not do a lot of work within the area, the 201 sewer district, which is the area that the community has invested in. And we think, that's where the community has decided that development should happen. And so we'll look at those properties really carefully, and unless there's something really compelling about that specific parcel, we'll say no. And we do say yes to projects along the riverfront. For Riverfront Trail along Monument Road, we acquired a property right at the corner of South Camp and Monument because we figured that was a really important piece of open space for this community, for folks entering the National Monument. It's also a great terminus for this trail extension that we're building now. So there's a lot that goes into each of these projects and a lot of consideration about what are the long-term benefits, what are the long-term costs.
On the Monument Road project, what's the timeline on that? And when do you hope to be completed? And then what's the next stage? Is there a next stage?
Yeah, that's a great
share?
question. The goal is to break ground and work with the city to secure the funding and break ground this year. I'm not sure when that will happen. We'd be delighted to have a chain breaking, a ribbon cutting in the next year. I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's what we're shooting for. And so the goal there is to, again, connect South Camp in the off-road pedestrian path there to the lunch loop area. We continue to work with other landowners in the area, and we want to see if we can build out more trail connectivity. But the major themes in the Redlands right now, at least along the Monument Road area, the major theme is trail connectivity. And we're also looking at some other properties around there, but it's how do we knit this together and add value for the community.
Well, I want to say a big thank you for that property, because I live out in the Redlands, and you can't take your dog in the monument, which is a real bummer on some days when you think, I really want to go for a hike in the monument, but my dog's looking at me like, take me, please. But that's a really nice place to go walk the dog, and it's much appreciated.
Yeah, and so plans there, you asked next plans, one of them will be to work with the city and put some modest infrastructure on that property, some parking, and then some trails that connect.
Some dog poop.
And some dogs, some places
your
for
poop,
trash bags. That's right.
Your dog's poop. That's
right. Yeah.
Really important. And are there any other projects upcoming that you want to share? I mean, you talked about the Glade Park project.
Restoration work, yeah. We are doing, it's funny, people ask me, what's going on at the Land Trust, and they'll get this sort of blank stare because I don't know where to start. But the reality is that we have some very different fabulous projects going on across Western Colorado. Here in Mesa County, we are working on a significant farm conservation easement in the Lower Valley. We're working on habitat projects in Plateau Valley. We are continuing to work along the Monument Road corridor. We are working with at least one fruit-growing family. We also are a project that I'm really excited about is also a new effort we're taking on in partnership with the county and a group called Trust for Public Land in Clifton. And we're looking at how can we support that community and provide some access to nature. We're looking at, are there opportunities to connect the Riverfront Trail and some land, publicly owned land along the river, to the Rocky Mountain Elementary School. And we're also looking at the possibility of acquiring land that could be a nature park in that area and other parks. The park would be a multi-use park, but a nature-themed park for that community, just to have opportunities for those kids to get outside and pick up rocks and look what's underneath and just play in the woods. And it's something that I think people take for granted, and it's also something that's not attainable for many in our community, and we think that hurts us all.
I think that's a great project. And that would be then connected by the riverfront trails to Palisade. And
that's the goal there. Outside of Mesa County, we're doing some work I'm really excited about. In Delta County, we're working on a significant project along the North Fork of the Gunnison between Hotchkiss and Paonia. We're working with landowners in Ouray County around Ridgeway, trying to help that community create an open space buffer consistent with community plans and the county land use plan, so to protect the valley floor between Ridgeway and Ouray, which we think is one of the most outstanding, iconic landscapes anywhere. And we've done some work there, and we are really excited to be getting traction with other property owners. And we're doing some work just to the south of Ridgeway, up towards Mount Sneffels as well. So those are some initiatives we're really excited about. And then the longer term water work is very important for us, and we're just wrapping our hands and our head around that, what that's going to look like. And then The other big theme, is the restoration and resilience work, working with landowners who've already done conservation projects, who've already protected their land from development. How can we take this the next step and improve it for habitat and for other uses as well?
I know that you worked closely with the developers of the Redlands 360 project too, and I appreciate that they reached out to you and had you all almost as consultants on building a connected community there. And I know there's a lot of people that would love for that to remain open space, and just a problem of funding, right? I mean, it was a very expensive piece of property, very valuable, and not necessarily possible for the land trust or other entities in town to just buy it and keep it open. Would if we could, right?
That would be that chapter's, I think, yet to be written on that project, and we continue to have productive dialogue with the owners of the property and the developer, and there's some other properties up there as well that we're looking at. So we hope that we can not just influence the design, but also secure some open space that would benefit folks who live in that area and everybody in the community. So that one, when we do this next conversation, Christi, in a year or two, hopefully we'll have an update there to talk about some ground we've gained in that landscape.
So the Colorado West Land Trust is centered here in Grand Junction, in your office here, but did you keep the office in Montrose, and do you have other offices?
A great question. We have 10 staff members now. We had an office in Montrose, and then during the pandemic, we shut that office down. Our staff member who lives in Montrose is working remotely for the time being. We will reopen an office in Montrose, we think, in 2022 is the plan. And we have another staff member who's based in Paonia. So we don't have plans for a physical office presence there, but we certainly want to have someone, boots on the ground, people working in that community. But most of, the 8 of the 10 of us work here in Grand Junction. And we also have our board, about a third of our board resides outside of Mesa County, and we're looking to increase that number as well.
Great. And, when you go, say, drive over Vail Pass, and they have this amazing bike path all along the side of the highway, it's really great. And they have a lot of money in Vail. And I just want to encourage all of our listeners and watchers to give to the Land Trust. It's really important for us to continue this mission to put properties under conservation so that we can have more and more opportunities for views and recreation and habitat and wildlife and all of those things. So give generously, everyone.
Thanks, Christi. I could not have said that better myself. And I would just say that there's so much change going on in Western Colorado right now. And, we can just look to the Front Range and other places to see what happens when there's been this intense growth without adequate conservation work. Mm-hmm. And from my perspective, again, this part of Colorado is certainly the best. And I mean, it's just a wonderful place to live. And it's wonderful from my perspective, in large part because of our landscapes and our vistas and our access to nature. And if you enjoy, and people from around the world come here for those purposes. So we need to, it's not going to remain that way unless we take action. And it has to be done in a way that's collaborative with landowners, that brings people together to realize shared goals. And I'm very excited about the opportunities, and also at times overwhelmed by the challenge, because the secret, if there was a secret, is out. You know better than I, Christi, what's going on in the real estate market. It's wild how many folks have said, now's the time for me to make this move that I've thought about for years.
Well, Suzanne from our team was over in Colorado Springs last weekend, and she met a young man who said, Grand Junction, I think I want to move over there. I can't afford to buy a house over here anymore. And our prices have gone up so much here, but when you look at our prices compared to other places, we're still pretty affordable. So they're going to keep coming, and we do need to make sure we're protecting those places.
I agree, and I think we also need to be looking at how do we put in place now what we need to protect our public lands and recreational opportunities, and how do we keep these experiences, world class and top notch, and that gets compromised if we don't manage people. So I think there's a big challenge for the community in the region to get its hands around how do we have sustainable outdoor recreation and tourism here, and it's something that if we don't address now, we're gonna be sorry in a few years.
Yeah, agree. I know that's a conversation that a lot of stakeholders are having. And we could do another show on that.
And I think there's some interesting models on the West Slope for us to look at. Gunnison County has a sustainable tourism and outdoor recreation coalition that is doing things like investing in trailheads and camping and that sort of stuff. And we need to follow suit. And we're seeing some of that on the public land, certainly. I mean, the work around 18 Road is pretty wild, what's been done there to try to accommodate and manage, what looks to be a small city worth of people that come every weekend in the spring and fall.
It's amazing sometimes when you go out there. It's mind-blowing. Yeah. Well, Rob, I really thank you for being here today and sharing the story about the land trust. And is there anything that you can think of that when you came here, you're thinking, I hope she asked me this, or you're thinking now, I didn't get to talk about this?
No, I just just appreciate this opportunity, and I think we covered much of the ground I was hoping we would. I would just say that we are at a moment in time now where the landscapes that we take for granted are under threat to go through some significant change. Mm-hmm. And there's a role that I think all of us need to play. Like, how can we work together with the farmers and ranchers who own so much of the Western Colorado landscape to protect values we care about? How can we work together as a region around water issues? That to me is the most important thing for us right now. And the fact of the matter is that we don't have the political power of, we're one congressional district out of 7 or 8 in the state now, and in Colorado has about 1/7 or 1/8 the congressional delegation of California. So we don't have the power to simply dictate what will happen, and the only way we can create a future that serves us is by working together. And so that's just an important theme for folks to understand and learn about some of these issues and figure out how can we partner to protect something, this amazing quality of life we have here.
We're going to be reading a lot about water issues. More than ever before.
Yes,
in
and
the upcoming years.
It's technical, it's complex, it's expensive, and it's absolutely essential to our way of life here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Rob Bleiberg, thank you so much for joining us here on the Full Circle podcast. Again, would you tell people where they can go to donate money or get involved, or if they want to apply to be on the board of directors, however they want to get involved with the land trust? How do they do that?
Great. So cowestlandtrust.org is our website, and you can learn more about what we're up to, and certainly the opportunities to get involved either as a financial supporter or to learn. Like everyone else, we're trying to navigate the whole activities around COVID thing, but we do anticipate some events this year and some field trips, and we are delighted to work with the community. We also have a dedicated group of restoration volunteers, the Monument Stewards, and they are active. I think it's every Wednesday morning. They're out doing work along the Monument Road corridor. And so certainly opportunities to get your hands dirty and get involved and put some sweat equity into this.
And if somebody has some land that they'd like to conserve, that's also where they would go to get in touch.
By all means, yeah. And we're delighted to field those kinds of calls, and just so appreciate the community. And I guess I'll just end, Christi, by saying that one thing that was really interesting for me from the last 2 years of pandemic madness was it reaffirmed just how central the landscape is to us here in Western Colorado. And we saw that in a number of ways, hordes of people descending on our trails. I think the BLM is projecting like 180,000 user days at Lunch Loop per year. And so that's 3 times the city of Grand Junction's population. It's over this Mesa County's population. We saw concerns about local food and food security. We saw so many of us just turning to nature for our mental health. So for me, that was reaffirming for what we're doing and how important our mission is. And we've been so fortunate to have tremendous support the last few years as people have also come to that conclusion and helped the Land Trust to make progress.
Agree. Awesome.
Thank you so much, Christi.
Thank you, Rob. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Full Circle. Bye. Thanks for listening. This is Christi Reece signing out from the Full Circle podcast.